You're looking live at chopper pictures from our Sky 9 this morning. You can see the amount of smoke that's just hanging in the sky. The winds have died down, which is giving firefighters a break and a chance to switch out crews after nearly 2 days on the fire lines. But of course, no end in sight for these fires. It is still not contained at this point, the Woolsey fire.
That's right, Suzanne. I'm Peter Dowd. Thanks for being with us, folks. 200,000 people and 75,000 homes have been evacuated, at least 39,000 acres gone. This fire still at zero containment. As we mentioned, the Woolsey fire is still growing at a very slow pace. Again, the good news, the winds are starting to die down. That was the biggest factor in how quickly they spread yesterday. Still heading towards the coast, though, and officials say at least 2 people have died. It's unknown yet if those deaths are actually connected to the fire. So definitely still a lot of concern right now for people all across our region. We also talked about the air quality and how bad it is. So even if you're not directly in the vicinity of the flames, you're still going to be impacted because we all have to breathe this air that now is just so smoky, so much ash. People's cars are now covered in ash. People who have asthma issues or the elderly, they're the most susceptible.
That's right. And of course, in Pepperdine, there is major concern for some parents with kids who attend the university. Many students are staying on campus despite evacuation orders for the city of Malibu.
KCAL 9's Joy Benedict is live outside of the campus with the details on that. Good morning, Joy.
Good morning. Yeah, certainly a very, concerning situation for many people who were out here overnight trying to figure out exactly what was going on here at Pepperdine, as everybody was getting emails and tweets saying people weren't allowed to leave. We have since learned that that may not have been the whole truth, although some students may have felt that way. But first, I want to show you the good news. I want to show you the hillside over here behind Pepperdine University, which does appear to be clear right now as the fire has moved on from this area. Of course, that was not the case just a few hours ago. And we did start getting some emails and concerns of that nature from folks here. Here's a couple that we read. One saying, "My daughter is telling me they are being held in the cafeteria, not allowed to leave while the fire approaches and the rest of Malibu is evacuating." And then another one saying, "As I understand it, there was a mandatory evacuation of Malibu. Why would they not be moving these students? Having hundreds of children die in a fire because they had a faulty plan and restricted the students' ability to evacuate would be a tragedy of epic proportions." So we come up here at about 3 o'clock this morning trying to get in, and here is what we saw. Get out. There was a lot of flames. They were small flames, but they were approaching the area where the students were evacuated or put into a shelter in place, probably about 100 yards away or so. Now, the Pepperdine University, the officials here did not want to let us into the evacuation area. They did not want to talk to us about what was going on, which sort of just added to the confusion of exactly what was happening up here. But we are being assured now that the students were allowed to leave if they wanted to, and that they have had this plan to shelter in place for a very long time. And I want to come out live now. I have a former student, someone who was staying with her mother-in-law up there last night. So you did shelter in place with all the students up here. Yes. Fallon Opsahl Barton, you graduated, I guess, last year?
Yes, in April.
So how was it up there last night?
It was predominantly very, very calm. Students, of course, did have some anxieties. I mean, it's really scary, especially at around 10:30 when the fire did crest over the hill. It's scary to see your community threatened by a fire like that. But in all of the past fires that have happened on the Pepperdine campus, from what I understand from people who have been here for many of the past fires, that happens pretty much every year, or every time this has happened, that the fire does crest. It comes right up to the condos. It even will come in these areas, but the fire department knows what they're doing, and they know when fires are an actual threat to structures and when they're not. And so they knew that these fires weren't an actual threat to any of our structures.
And where exactly did you stay?
So I was in the caf for the night, the cafeteria. Yes.
And what was it like in there? What was the atmosphere?
Predominantly, again, very calm. Students were, there was some worry, and it's crazy seeing that. But for most of the day, especially as we were just watching the smoke and there were no flames yet, students were calm. They were playing games. We sang in the caf, "Don't Stop Believin'," and a few other songs, and The attitude was one of a lot of positivity. After the tragedy our community experienced on Wednesday night, we lost one of our students in the shooting. She was one of those murdered at Borderline. I think there was a sense of community that drove everyone together. It also heightened some people's sense of anxiety and panic, I believe. I think that's where some senses were coming from, of like they were hearing the administration say, we really highly encourage you to stay. This is the safest place on campus. And I think a lot of people were feeling like that means we can't leave. And at times the roads were closed, and at times it was actually true that you couldn't leave, but not because of Pepperdine policy, but because there's nowhere to go. You either drive into a fire or you drive onto a closed street where they'll turn you around. So.
And of course, and as you brought up, it may be the safest place for some students who aren't familiar with the area, who maybe don't have a place to go, or some don't have a vehicle. I
mean, for the most part, it's the safest place in the area, period. If you were able to leave earlier, if you had friends or a place to go in Santa Monica and you were able to leave very, very early in the day or even yesterday, then that's safe. But even early in the day, once it became clear that Malibu was evacuating and other people from around the surrounding area were evacuating, the roads were actually very dangerous. People were driving erratically. It was clogged. Someone told me that they were trying to go to Santa Monica at one point in the late morning, and it took them an hour just to get from here to Ralph's, which is, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile. And so that's where a lot of the administration was coming from when they were saying, like, we really, really encourage you to stay. As I mentioned before, I'm a journalist, and so I actually worked for the student media on campus for 6 years and did a lot of reporting on emergency preparedness at Pepperdine. And the administration's plan, the Pepperdine's plan, is just so tight. Their first priority is the safety of all of the students and all of the faculty and staff and all of their children who are here on campus, who live in the faculty staff housing. And so I have a lot of confidence in Pepperdine and my university. And, none of us were harmed, no structural damage. Even with some of the miscommunication that happened with the fire department, they didn't show up quite on time, and that was a huge problem. Pepperdine was very angry about that,
right.
And still no structural damage.
All right. Well, we got to go. Thank you so much for checking in with us. I appreciate you sharing that side of it, and sort of easing some of the confusion that's been going on. But we'll send it back to you guys as we are starting to learn more, and people are starting to come out and share their sides of exactly what happened last night. I'm sure we'll be talking about this for days to come.
Oh, I'm sure you're right about that, Joy. And again, glad we're getting both sides of this. We continue our team coverage in Malibu, not too far from where Joy is, where fires ripped through homes and forced thousands to flee.
KCAL 9's Candace Crone is live along PCH, where several homes are still smoldering this morning. In fact, behind you, Candace.
Yes, Suzanne, we're just seeing more and more destruction. Take a look. This is the ranch at Solstice Canyon, and that is the rec center. Just a few minutes ago, it was smoldering, but now, as you can see, the flames have reignited. Yet another hot spot that just kind of sparks back up. But firefighters do believe that eventually it'll just burn itself out, so they're not too worried about it at this point, but they are monitoring, and we can just see them in from our site. But just to the right of it is a home. That home burned down early this morning. We watched it. It caught fire from some of the embers of the other spot fires that are in this area, and by the time crews got here, it was just fully engulfed. But let's take a look at some video. This is what it looked like earlier when it was on fire. We are told that firefighters were able to save the beach clubhouse that was right next door, but unfortunately this house just south of Solstice Canyon Road off of PCH is burned down. About at least 150 homes at this time. The fire jumped PCH last night around 10 o'clock, and that's what forced it to close. As you can see, it is a ghost town out here with mandatory evacuations, no cable, no internet, no phone or anything like that. It's just very deserted out here. Only people that we're seeing, firefighters, and then some last-minute folks who chose to evacuate. Peter and Suzanne.
Thank you, Candace. And of course, we'll be staying on top of it all morning. That section of PCH closed. And the devastation is heartbreaking. Many reporters and photographers have seen the destruction as it's been happening.
That's right. KCAL 9's Serene Branson here now to show us some of the damage and just the heartache that these people are experiencing right now.
Yeah, well, Peter, Suzanne, we have all been out there, right? We have been out on these fire lines. And when you see something happen, when you're on live television, there is nothing so scary. You have to keep it together, and a number of our reporters and photographers have been out there. They've seen houses collapse, they've seen cars catch on fire, and we want to show you some of those images that we've seen. As you can imagine, it's so hard to watch as the fire chews up homes, cars, and everything in its path. This is video of a home collapsing as our crew rolled on the fire. This is right off Canaan Doom Road. This is a scene that we have seen over and over again. Large homes in the Malibu Hills, in the Oak Park area, simply collapsing. This video shows a Volkswagen sedan engulfed in flames on Pacific Coast Highway yesterday, also near Canaan Doom. We're told a relative went to check on a family member and the flames moved so quickly, the car didn't stand a chance. And to our north, the Camp Fire in Butte County near Chico has claimed at least 9 lives. The entire town of Paradise, which is home to about 27,000 people, is leveled. The city center, as well as surrounding homes, are gone. We're told that about 900,000 acres have burned and 6,500 homes destroyed. More than 50,000 people remain evacuated, and as of last night, the fire is only 5% contained. President Trump took to Twitter this morning to talk about the firestorm, and he threatened to cut funding to the state. He wrote, "There is no reason for these massive, deadly, and costly forest fires in California, except that forest management is so poor, billions of dollars are given each year, with so many lives lost, all because of gross mismanagement of the forests. Remedy now or no more federal payments." The comments were Trump's first about the massive wildfires. And you might recall back in August, he posted a similar tweet that blamed other fires on bad environmental laws. At that time, he also claimed that water from Northern California was being diverted into the Pacific Ocean. So pretty controversial message from the president about the wildfires this morning. Of course, this is just the first time that he's talked about this on Twitter, but we'll see what he has to say the rest of the day, because obviously we have a state of emergency in California right now.
We really do, Serene. And one of the most harrowing images that you just showed us was that poor family who had to drive through the fire with flames just all around them.
Right. You know, as reporters, we go into those situations, but I can't imagine having my baby in the back seat with what little I've taken from my home, knowing that this may be the last time I'm seeing my house.
Just goes to show you it's not just here in Southern California dealing with fires all up and down the state, Northern California. And again, it is now considered the worst fire in California history.
Right, the Camp Fire up in Butte County, right outside of Chico, the most destructive wildfire in California
And
history.
we heard that last year with the Thomas Fire near Santa Barbara, but now another fire has taken that title. So it's just unfortunate that we keep seeing this more and more, it seems.
Right, yeah, it seems like every year we're setting a new record, not a good one.
No.
That's right. And there are fires burning right now. We have our Sky 9 over a fire in Agoura Hills where there is a home on fire. We don't want to forget, even though Malibu is decimated in many areas, parts of the valley are affected. The 101 between Hidden Hills and Westlake Village remains closed because firefighters are busy out there trying to keep an eye on hot spots. This fire looks like maybe it had been put out earlier and then flared up again, which is always scary because you can see the homes around there. It looks like either they've burned down or that they've been protected, but everything else is quiet around that house. And that one is engulfed in flames again. And what's dangerous, and thankfully the winds aren't high, but if an ember does shoot off into a nearby house, that's the fear that the fire department has, is that it could spread yet again.
And we have seen that time and time again, haven't we, Suzanne, where it looks like things are over, the fire crews have left the scene, and then suddenly something like this happens, including here in Agoura Hills, where suddenly something sparks back up, an ember just catches something, and another home is destroyed. We could tell you this is at least one of 150 homes now destroyed. And again, more than 200,000 people evacuated. The good news, though, at least, is that the wind is not as potent, is not as powerful and erratic as it was yesterday. Markina, you're tracking that for us.
I am, Peter. Good morning. We are looking at a more onshore flow today, which for us will mean a couple of things. It means the winds will relax and it means temperatures will be cooler. But you'll notice when you look at this graphic that the red flag warning is in effect through Tuesday evening. That is because as we get into Sunday morning, tomorrow morning, the winds will pick up again. For now, not a problem. This is a normal wind day, if you will, around Southern California. Nothing going on. Most places are calm. Winds are not an issue. But as we go forward in time to tomorrow morning, you can see tomorrow afternoon early, these winds will start to pick up, and that will be the focus as we get into all day Sunday. This is something that can't be managed. This is Mother Nature. We're talking about gusty winds that are up and over 40, 45 miles an hour for Santa Clarita, for Santa Paula. You get into some of the higher elevations, and easily we could see those winds gusting up and over 50 and 60 miles an hour. Even as we go through Sunday afternoon, still pretty windy. And these are just areas where our weather monitors are. In some of the higher elevations where we don't have weather monitors, where people live still, you know, some of these winds could be even stronger than this. So this is something that we are going to watch as we get back into Sunday. Sunday is probably going to be another very busy day in terms of fires and in terms of certainly wind and, of course, low humidity. The humidity isn't going to get any higher as we go through the course of the day today. Even though the winds are going to relax a little bit, it is still going to be a very dry day. You can see that we're looking at humidity levels here for Ontario at 18%. So that is a look at what we're doing right now. Weather-wise, for now, we'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Markina. We're going to take you to break with the smoke over Malibu. This fight is not over. There is no containment on the Woolsey fire. It has just decimated communities, and it keeps moving through. We have our eyes on it with multiple reporters on the scene.